Thank you very much, Akim. Thank you, dear friends and colleagues. First of all, I would like to thank for all the tremendous support that your countries and other countries, almost the whole world, provided to Ukrainian people in the time of the difficulty. But we need to move on, and we need to think how to not recover Ukraine, but to rebuild Ukraine to a new level. Because after all these events that happened in Ukraine, we cannot go back to kind of old normal. We have to go back to a new normal. A new normal for Ukraine would be to build country at a 2.0 level, a country with developed industry, and a country that is included in regional and global supply chains. And there will be a lot of investment opportunities for all partners from throughout the world that will take part in the rebuilding of Ukraine process. Today we talk about private investment, and private investment will be a big part of rebuilding of Ukraine. It's a very special talk. It's a very special, exercise, and there should be special rules that will, enable to implement participation of private sector in the rebuilding of Ukraine. I will be talking first of all about low-hanging fruits, so industries like construction, consumer products, construction materials as well, pharmaceuticals, healthcare, logistics, also things like oil refinery, because as you know, Ukraine now has no oil refineries because the last oil refinery was attacked by Russian missiles and is not operating. So Ukraine was experiencing big shortages of fuel before. Now it's much better because logistics are changing. And I have taken all notes from colleagues that spoke before me about logistics, about digitalization, about partnership opportunities. And what we had to do, we had to sit down together and do analytics. We had to think what can we do with every country, with every partner, in order to rebuild Ukraine, but also to make benefit for your country and for your businesses. Just think about these figures. At the Lugano conference that took place just at the beginning of July, the government of Ukraine announced that there will be a need for $750 billion in order to rebuild Ukraine. Majority of that money will come, of course, from international institutions, international financial partners from countries around the world. But also, there is a big part for private investors to participate in this process. We need to rebuild Ukraine to a new level, to a country where investment projects, investment ideas turn into investment projects on an annual basis. This is no longer about option for Ukraine. This is about survival of Ukraine. So you can rest assured that Ukraine will do its utmost in order to make country attractive and very flexible to all needs of businesses and partners throughout the world. Also, we need to think about insurance for private investments. Of course, there will be a lack of consideration if companies will be not willing to invest because of the possibility of physical damage, even after the war. When the war will end, and I hope that it will end soon, foreign investors will be still, cautious about the possibility of a new aggression. So investment insurance is a very big topic. But analytics and thinking through about joint agendas, how we can cooperate, this is the way forward. And I'm going to give you a small example before I finish my introduction here during this for this question. At the beginning of the war, Ukraine already started analyzing who was leaving Russia. More than 1,000 companies, as you know, left Russia. For us as Ukraine Invest, we were mostly interested in companies that stopped investing in plants in Russia. And we had about 300 of those on our list. We are getting in touch with them on a daily basis and proposing Ukraine as a new country war will end. Also, we listen to their concerns, to their wishes in terms of regulatory policy. And I have to tell you about success right now. I would like to thank Irish company, Kingspan Company. It's the global leader in insulation and construction materials. They were the first ones to leave for Russia, and they were the first ones to announce investment in Ukraine. In June 2022, they announced investment of over 200 million euros, and they will build their most technologically advanced facility in Ukraine between 2023 and 2027. Ukrainian Banks is supporting them now and providing all possible consultations and all the ground support for this project. So once again, thank you for that company, and I'm sure that there will be multiple cases like this. So as IPAs, we have to sit down, think about strong sides of your countries and Ukraine. For example, Ukraine is very famous in terms of agricultural produce. And you know about difficulties that we have now with logistics, and more than 20 million tons of grain stuck in Ukraine, and this would lead to hunger in African countries and so on. So now this process is being unblocked a bit, but more needs to be changed. So there is a great opportunity to develop agri-processing sector within Ukraine. Agri-processing sector within Ukraine can consume at least $20 billion by 2025-2027 alone. Can you imagine these figures? There is a room for every investor from throughout the world in Ukraine, and once again, Ukraine will be rebuilt on a new level. But we have to start planning now how to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Serge. Thank you very much. You already paved the way for my last question by looking into the future of Ukraine when Ukraine is in its integrity and peaceful again. And I would like to ask the last question to the participants here on the stage. And I would like to ask to be brief because it's a simple question. How do you envision, when you look into the future, what would be your vision of how your country cooperates with Ukraine when things are settled, peaceful, and back to integrity? What would be your vision in the cooperation with Ukraine? And I see Mr. Bogdanov took the microphone, so now go ahead. Keep it short.
Bless you. So if I can summarize in one sentence, the key point here is togetherness. So if we stay together as a region, as countries that have a very clear vision on which side should be in terms of economic development, in terms of democracy, if we all stay together and together try to overcome all of these challenges in terms of logistics, in terms of security, in terms of even relocation of people, we will succeed together. And there are some really good examples looking back at the history that we as Europe can do that. But not only we are not alone, and we can clearly see that big part of the world actually is on this side. So let's stay together, work together for a better future of Europe.
Thank you so much. I think you can pass it over to Iveta or to Eva.
Yeah.
What's the perspective of the Czech Republic?
I will be brief as well. I think that together with Ukraine, we will build stronger Europe, that Ukraine will very much be involved in all the value chains and supply chains which we have in the region. Our companies, talking about Russia and how they cut the operations there, I know that our companies are looking to Ukraine as the new place for moving the operations which they had in Russia, and they will place them in Ukraine to serve the region. So I only see that really it will all make us stronger and that the cooperation will be great. Thank you.
Excellent.
Okay, I will take it over here. Of course, we definitely welcome Ukraine to the family of EU members and everybody else looking west strongly, which saved our places when we broke up from the Soviet Union. And at the same time, the cooperation was already mentioned is definitely key. If we, for example, I really like the idea, and it was in the previous panel here, that we should find the area either for sectorally based or regionally based where we work. But there are certain things, for example, housing, you can build it every single region or oblast separately without being dependent on each other. But if you look at the digital infrastructure, educational systems, we can't just work in one region we are doing education here or e-governance here. It has to be countrywide. And that's why the cooperation between all of our countries who are helping Ukrainian to rebuild the country must cooperate very closely. And of course, somebody should be the leader who will hold the flag and show the direction. But that the cooperation is definitely the key word.
Excellent. Thank you. Iveta.
Yeah, thank you. I think that we all share common vision, and we see Ukraine as a blooming and democratic country. And of course, our economic cooperation is close, and it will be even closer after. And yeah, I think that together we are stronger than being alone. And of course, we welcome Ukraine and European Union and family of European Union. And yeah, I'm looking toward good cooperation.
Probably two things that we will have to focus after this war. The first one I already mentioned, so the logistic. After the war, the world is going to be absolutely different. So the commercial streams from east, they're going to move to the west, and of course Moldova and Ukraine has to go together in this perspective. And the second one is the phrased Transnistrian conflict. That is a territory controlled by Russia that stays between Ukraine and Moldova. And that is absolutely not good. Any conflict, even a phrased one, for any international investments.
Thank you. So our vision would be for Ukraine not only to be a host country for foreign investment, but to become a home for European multinational companies to incubate and originate those firms, and for those firms in turn to invest in their neighbours and other member states across the EU, so that there's a mutuality and a reciprocity to the investment flows, us to Ukraine and Ukraine back to us. That will be a foundation for more pan-European peace and prosperity.
Beautiful, thank you, thank you. What we heard in the discussion right here is that in the beginning we were talking about the foreign direct investments and how far they have challenges these days and what kind of industries they are. And in the end, I learned that the industries we heard in the beginning, they are also the vision for the future, how to build stronger bonds with Ukraine and to strengthen the Ukraine in the end. With this, I would like to thank particularly Sergei Tivkach for making it possible to stay for such a long time in this discussion. It's really great to see you and to have your contribution here. And I would also thank this esteemed panel and the panelists for having this bright and insightful discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Achim, and thank you very much, valuable speakers. We'll be going on to the next panel, but maybe a lot of applause for this valuable panel once again. So before we go on to the next section, I have an announcement to make. The International Trade Council and the Estonian Business and Innovation Agency would like to announce that the 2022 Go Global Awards entries will be held in Tallinn, Estonia this year. Finalist judging will take place on the 19th and 20th of October, with the final awards being given at a gala event on the 21st of October. The Estonian Business and Innovation Agency was last year's overall winner amongst trade and investment promotion agencies. However, due to the COVID lockdowns, they did not receive their award in person. So while we are saying goodbye to some of our speakers, I will kindly ask some of our speakers, especially for the beginning, for this last year's award. I want to first call Mr. Sinan Bedir, a board member of the International Trade Council, to come to the stage and present last year's award in person to Mr. Sven Oleg, who will accept the award on behalf of Estonia. Maybe Mr. Sven Oleg, you want to say a few words?
Yes, thank you once again. Yes, of course, you're all welcome to Tallinn in October, as was mentioned already. The registration is actually already open since today. If you go to globalawards.com, then you will be able to register. All the information is already there. I think with the registration, you also already received a little cards where you can find this, all these most important information, bits and pieces. Also in the downstairs, when the registration area is, there is a little stand where I brought together some materials about Estonia, some Estonian candy. So you can have a first taste of what the Tallinn tastes like, because Tallinn is actually, on top of being most digital and etc., it is now on a Michelin list of countries. We have a few Michelin star restaurants, around 20 Michelin recommendation restaurants, so you will have a culinary experience as well on top of the business experience. So welcome to Tallinn, October 19, 2020, 1st of October this year already. And we can continue all the conversation with my dear panelists in Tallinn to see how is the situation by that far, how many FDI has been transferred to Ukraine, from Ukraine, etc., etc. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We have a short video. Is it ready? We still have some awards The ITC would also like to present an award of recognition to our moderator for today's panel's discussion, Mr. Rahim Hartig, Managing Director of Germany Trade and Invest and CEO of the OECD Network of Investment Promotion Agencies, in recognition for his hard work and dedication in international investment, promotion, cooperation, and innovation through difficult times over these past few years.
Thank you very much. Great pleasure, great honor.
You're welcome.
Sure. Sure. I think we cannot overrate the meaning of foreign direct investments in these days. And when these kind of conferences are normally held in larger cities, and we are, like I said before, talking about multinational companies changing their locations and recreating whole areas of industries, it is often forgotten that what really counts in the foreign direct investment business is that what small and medium-sized companies do. And when we are involved in helping these kind of companies to establish locations, we create bonds, we create links between countries. And it's a particular pleasure for me and my team to help this conference with the panel moderation, and also by helping this conference to help creating the exchange between the panelists and between the countries, and hopefully adding our small 2-3 millimeters of support to the situation in Ukraine. Thank you very much for your interest and also for your participation.
And then I would also like to...
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry. And then the ITC would further like to present awards to the Honorable Alina Yanchenko, Secretary of the National Investment Council of Ukraine and Member of Parliament of Ukraine.
Yeah, well, thank you for an opportunity to be here, to talk to our great audience, to also bring some maybe practical results to our Ukrainian investors, to Turkish investors, to everyone who came here to discuss this important topic. You know, today Ukraine is associated with bravery. Even in like New York metro stations, it says Ukraine bravery. But I want to say that the real bravery comes from average people in Ukraine, but also from not average investors that still work in Ukraine, that show their creativity, flexibility, that show their bravery. So actually, I think all the honors that all the, I don't know, recognitions that organizers of this event can give should actually go to Ukrainian investors. So I really ask you to give a round of applause to them. Thank you.
Thank you once again, Ms. Alina Yanchenko. And now the Honorable Dmytro Natalukha, Chairman of the Economic Affairs Parliamentary Committee and a Member of Parliament of Ukraine. Could you kindly come to stage?
Thank you, and it's a true honor and a true pleasure. Thank the beautiful panelists, the Turkish hosts, Alina, Gennadiy, and everyone, Lisa, everyone else. What to say? I think that the situation in Ukraine has clearly demonstrated one simple thing. Sanctions are targeting the economy. The economy is being made by business. Business is crucial to any economy. And if you think that there is only one way to win this war, through military force, this is not true. Business is as much important as the military, and therefore we need business to be engaged in it in order to bring peace to the whole world and to our region. So thank you very much for doing this. Thank you to all the businesses from all around the world who support Ukraine, and we will prevail. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And the Honorable Yelizaveta Yasko, Head of Interparliamentary Cooperation, Bilateral and Multilateral Relations Committee on Foreign Affairs and Interparliamentary Cooperation, Member of Parliament of Ukraine.
Yeah. Today in my speech, I ask you to think about the future, but just one more time. I want, to tell to all of you that my life, as the life of many Ukrainians, has never been easy, because we have to fight for very existential questions, like for justice, for life tomorrow. And that makes us so much stronger. And you cannot imagine how many people were approaching me in the beginning of the war before, and my colleagues and President Zelensky and saying, come on, just leave. Leave. Let's put the government in exile. Let's not fight against this aggression. But we said, all of us, we said, no, we want to defend ourselves. We want to defend our land. We want to defend our future because it's our land, it's our future, and it's our choice. It's not easy, but I'm sure that in the end, this is the right thing because we are true to ourselves, and being true to our hearts is not always easy, but it's the only thing that can make us happy and that can really change the world. Let's do that together with a real heart and what we feel and the values we care, with the responsible businesses, and with making a change for the future, because the world is different right now and it will be different even more. Thank you.
Hope everything good with you. Thank you.
We have 2 more awards to give. And for the National Investment Council of Ukraine, I would kindly ask again Halina Yanchenko to come on stage.
Yep, another one. Collect all prizes.
Okay. Well, actually, can we actually give it to Ukrainian investors finally, to give them kudos and to give them applauses, because really they deserve it. And actually, one of our next panel will be about Ukrainian leaders, Ukrainian economic leaders, and I think that that panel will be very interesting. And I really encourage you to stay here and to come back at 5. And also to some panel discussion before. But at 5, we will have a very interesting panel discussion with Ukrainian business leaders. They will share their experience, like what was the experience to keep their businesses during the full-scale invasion, how they relocated it, or how they diversified their production, how they deal with logistics, and once again, how foreign companies or foreign partners can engage in these activities, how they can benefit in these activities, what new partnership or new some agreements and contracts can be signed. So I really encourage you to stay here and or to come back at 5 and to get these very useful contacts.
And then we have the last award, that is for Mr. Sergei Sivkach, Chief Executive Officer at Ukrainian Waste. I don't know how we will do that, or online, if anybody can take over, or we can maybe present it for the public.
Yes, maybe we can do this.
So, thank you very much, our speakers. Thank you very much, Mr. Bogdan Bogdanov, Ms. Iveta Sturkaya, Ms. Eva Jungmanova, Mr. Stelian Manik, Mr. Kiran Donoghue, and Mr. Sergei Sivkach, and Mr. Sven Olik. Thank you very much. And of course, Mr. Achim Hartig for the great moderation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Actually, we had a short break, but I don't think we will be able to have it because we're a bit back on schedule. So I would kindly ask you to stay in your seats. We have a short panel coming up, Invest in Ukraine, a presentation on Ukraine's most important upcoming infrastructure opportunities and how international partners can contribute towards the rebuilding of a new Ukraine and the shared future of economic prosperity. For our speakers, I would kindly call the co-founder of HT Group, UParks, Ukraine, Boris Sheshtopalo, and for Adventure Group, Ukraine, the founder, Mr. Andriy Ligak. Hello, welcome. So I will pass the microphone on to you. And hello, yes.
Наверное, наверное, да. It's work or not? How it's work? It's work. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody who is give time for our small presentations. We talk a little bit about shortly history and about our idea and about our solutions. Like you see, what we have before 2024. Before 2024 of February, Ukraine, it's one of the biggest agriculture food supplier in the world. And what we have now, and we finish 2021 with one of the biggest DGP in history of Ukraine, about $200 billion. And export of agriculture products, it's one of the important part in our export. Just a moment, how it's work as a site, I don't know. Okay, thank you very much. What we have now, we have now a problem, and we talk about this problem with all presentations, since this whole on all another whole when we talk about Ukrainian today. We have a problem with the logistics corridors. We have a problem with all business, which is rely with the Ukrainian agriculture products. Around the world, it's more than around 250,000 different business, which is rely with Ukrainian agriculture. And we're very close to the global food crisis, for the global food risk. And if the war in Ukraine persists, we have a very big chance for back to time when the people not enough real bread, real food. But it looks like tragic, but we have solutions. It's not just one solutions. We have a lot of solutions, and all panelists who have time on this send today talk about this. But our main idea, it's a new opportunity what is we have now in Ukraine.
When we elaborated Ukrainian economic strategy, we found out that most of Ukrainians' export are the raw materials export. It is why we have real problem with current situation with seaports, because most of our exports are raw materials, and these tons of exports demands seaway how to export it from Ukraine. So we're trying now found out the ideas how to enlarge complexity of Ukrainian economy, how to enlarge value added products in our export. And one of this idea is to establish the special net of agricultural, technological, innovative parks in Ukraine. So we started this idea several months ago, and we hope to have in 2023 at least one industrial park which will be technological, which will be very innovative, which will produce end users products, final products for Ukrainian exports and for domestic market. It is why we are now looking for partners, not only investors. Actually, first of all, we need real partners from around the world in order to jointly with them build the most developed cluster of agriculture technologies, food technologies, and future technologies. It is why we now choose 3 locations inside of Ukraine, in the regions where we can realize these ideas, where we can establish right logistics, and where we have local partners. And now we started to share this idea around the world in order to have partners from the most developed countries, from the most developed technologies.
Okay, like Andrew said, it's a different park with different technology, different part of Ukraine, because it's close to raw material, or to the electricity, or to the geographical, or to the logistics way. It's for future. It's efficiently. It's exactly new idea, and of course we must use special rules, special law in Ukraine about industrial park. And thank you to part of parliament who is sitting in this hall, who is really work with this new law, with new rules. We have very good. Thank you. Thank you, Dmytro, Natalukha. We have a very good tax. It's exactly 0 tax for 10 years. And we have very good start positions for the, like we talk in Ukrainian, people very smart, very brave, and really to changing. And we talk about real modernizations and real transformations agri-food tech business. Because one of main story, it's a increase cost of our products and margin of our products, and increase cost of each ton what is we delivery through the border according to problems what we have today. It's our team, it's our partners. Now list of these partners is bigger and bigger and bigger, and we continue to develop this program. We start with the first park near the Vinnytsia. It's a Vinnytsia industrial cluster. Just 1 week ago, we signed the big agreement with City Council of Vinnytsia, and today we have agreement with Lviv, and we continue to develop this project. We have all informations. It's all advantages of our idea, and we have QR code with full presentations of agri-industrial park in Ukraine, and we have any answer. We have any questions, please.
Yeah, and finally, I can add that in reality, we are looking for the real partners in order to develop these parks and clusters jointly. We are looking for partners from Turkey, because we know that Turkey has the most interesting and innovative technologies in agri-tech.
For example, in Turkish, we know very good sample, very similar to very close to my business, because one of our business, it's flour mill business. Turkish has a very good story. During 30 years, approximately, built one of the biggest flour business in the world. And now, if I remember, Turkish has the first positions of the export for the flour. It means we're looking not just investment, we're looking partner, and we're looking new residents who is really try with us, start to make it project. Project needs to make it now, and start to build after the situations in Ukraine with the war more stability.
And for global food security. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Boris Cheshapalo and Mr. Andrei Digak. Thank you. So I want to hereby continue with the next panel. I want to call our moderator, Mr. Denis Yachin. So this is going to be about US-Ukraine business relations. It will be a panel discussion on US-Ukraine business relations, current and potential projects and synergy between the US and Ukraine businesses. The United States attaches great importance to the success of Ukraine as a free and democratic state with a flourishing market economy. US policy is centered on supporting Ukraine in the face of continued Russian aggression as it advances reforms to strengthen democratic institutions, fight corruption, and promote conditions for economic growth and competition. The panel is dedicated to infrastructure, agriculture, and logistics. And our speakers are going to be Tom Austin from Ukraine Special Projects, Tom Austin from Trimble. He's the Ukraine Special Projects Director. And from WebTech Corporation, Managing Director of Sales and Project Finance, International Government Affairs, Lars Hickey, and from VP Business Development, Yusko Group USA, Vasily Borowski. Welcome, and I think you have the microphone, so you can proceed with the panel. Thank you.
Okay. Check, works. So, ladies and gentlemen, I can finally say that this is the panel that you all have been waiting for today. Because we have a very ordinary and extraordinary gentleman here on the arena today. We have reps from American companies that done a lot for Ukraine, that are doing a lot for Ukraine, and I'm sure they will be doing a lot in the future. First and foremost, I would like to say thank you to each of the gentlemen sitting here, to Lars Hickey, to Tom, to Vasily, to Vlad for their support that they have been providing from their companies, from their moral support, financial support, and all the job they are doing to support Ukraine's economy, business, and agriculture, infrastructure, cutting-edge technologies, and other stuff as well. So, as already, as the MC already presented my speakers, I just would like to say a few words about the companies we are having here on the arena today. So we have Tom Austin, Ukraine Special Project Director, Trimble. This is, also, ladies and gentlemen, we have a very privileged to have here today two companies from Golden State of California, and one gentleman from Pennsylvania, Keystone State, yeah? Okay. I mean, but for the pre-production. Okay. So the company Trimble, it's a California-based software, hardware, and service technology company. Trimble supports global industrial industries in building, construction, agricultural, natural resources and utilities, government transportation, and etc. So on the right, we have Lars Hickey, Managing Director for Sales and Project Finance, International Government Affairs, WebTech Corporation. So WebTech Corporation manufactures products for locomotives, freight cars, and passengers transit vehicles, and builds new locomotives up to 6,000 horsepower. Correct? Super. And on the right to Lars, we have Vasily Borowski, Vice President Business Development at Yusko Group. Yusko Group is the logistics company in the US, but they also have branches in Europe, and I suppose they are planning to open some branches in elsewhere as well. And on the right to Vasily, we have Vlad Scott, CEO of Ukraine American House, and CEO of Yusko Express as well. So, please, a small applaud to all these guys. So, first and foremost, gentlemen, thank you very much for taking the time participating in this very important panel. There are a lot that has been done today in regards to infrastructure, agricultural, new technologies, investing in Ukraine, developing Ukrainian infrastructure capabilities and so on. And I think it is time to just finalize all these talks that we had today. So the first question that I would like to address is to you, Tom, if you don't mind, of course. So, Tom, your company, your corporation, if I may say so, you are doing a lot of work in agricultural, in infrastructure, and all other things as well. What drew your attention to Ukraine? And I know that you have provided substantial support, financial support from the company to Ukraine. Just please let us more about that.
Sure. Excuse me. Sure. So Trimble is a NASDAQ traded S&P 500 company. We've got about 12,000 employees around the world. We've got about 40 offices. We were very Russia-centric before. Just naturally, that was the evolution. Even our Ukraine business was managed through Moscow because that European Russia was where the largest market was. So when the war broke out, we changed all of that. We immediately paused our business. We took about 2 months to extricate ourselves. We had about 6 business units in Russia, now completely out, no assets, no business in Russia. At the same time, I saw an interview with President Zelensky about a month into the war, and he basically said, there are companies lined up out the door to help us later when it's easy, but we're looking for people who are going to help us now. And Trimble is the kind of company that we're very interested in providing returns for our shareholders, but we're also interested in doing good. And we've got a very strict set of principles that we work on. So recently I became Ukraine Special Projects Director, so that will be my full-time job. And I've been told by our leadership that it's 50% humanitarian, 50% commercial. So we have precision technology for agriculture. We're one of the leading companies in the world that make farming more efficient, which in a time when there's not enough fuel, there's not enough seed, there's not enough other inputs, precision farming becomes extra important. We're a world leader in geospatial. That's surveying and mapping. And one of the Trimble slogans is we bring the digital and the physical worlds together, which is exactly what Ukraine needs right now. As far as damage assessment, as far as making 3D models of existing cultural important buildings. So if they do get destroyed, they can be rebuilt. So we're working with several city administrations to do those projects. And then we have construction technology, which also makes the reconstruction process, the planning and the execution much more efficient.
Okay, great. Thank you, Tom. So I would like also to draw the attention of the honorable audience here today that all these gentlemen that are sitting today here on the arena, they are all connected because some one of them are doing a very important work in agriculture, others transport grains, and others just deliver it to the final customer. So Lars, next question to you. The war has, the full invasion, the war has changed a lot. How do you see the railroad transportation change in Ukraine? Any advice from you how it should be rebuilt? Any advice of you what should Ukrainian government follow in order to have a cutting-edge, may I say, railroad infrastructure in upcoming future?
No, sure, thank you. We see an immense opportunity in Ukraine. We partnered a long time with Ukrzaliznytsia on the locomotive side of things and also the maintenance and parts facilitation for those locomotives. I think one of the main things for agriculture, mining, is to have a core fleet of locomotives and rail transportation to be able to export that material in the future. We've seen disruptions in the network, but again, there's a lot of opportunity to upgrade that network from a former Soviet network to more of an American railroad standard, so you can really get the throughput and efficiency that a lot of these companies are looking for.
Okay, so do you see more diesel or electric wagons?
Well, the biggest thing that we've saw as a kind of learning point from this conflict and war was that electric locomotives don't run well when your power grid is disrupted. So what we're seeing is our diesel locomotives and then also our new battery locomotives, autonomous locomotives are key for areas that have, possible conflicts. Right now, the freight locomotives that we have are moving about 95% of the humanitarian goods and freight goods in and out of the country. So they're key where if you have a disruption in your power grid, you have to have autonomous transportation, which would lead to a diesel or a battery locomotive.
Okay, thank you, Lars. But in regards to just broader area, if I may say so, any changes in transportation and logistics in Eastern Europe, if I may say so?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. If you're not familiar with Wabtec, we used to be GE Transportation, which is more of a commonly known name throughout the world. But we've sold basically to every CIS country except Russia. And the reason why is Russia has their own locomotive production with RJD and Transmesh Holding, so we're actually competitors. So if you look at the other states, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, those are our locomotives. And the reason why is they've moved away from the Russian standards and the Russian material more towards the Western technology, which now is critical for them because they can procure parts, keep their networks running, where the former Soviet production is, they're no longer able to get parts.
Thank you, Lars. So before we move to Vasily, I would like to ask our honorable panelists to think about 3 words they have association with Ukraine. I will ask these 3 words at the end of the panel, if you don't mind. Okay, Vasily, so you are working with the, if I may say so, with direct customers. So you are working with Ukraine, you are just transporting grains that thanks to Tom was rising in Ukraine, thanks to Lars was transported out of Ukraine and in the Ukrainian territory. So what kind of challenges you faced with? What kind of challenges you are facing now?
Good afternoon, everybody. Yes, as Dennis introduced us, we're from the USCO Transportation Group of companies with a lot of experience in moving US-based freight as well as international freight. We actually started getting involved with Ukraine through UA House. Our CEO is the chairman of a non-for-profit, which started as soon as the war commenced. It started organizing a lot of charitable donations, equipment, materials, supplies, and I'm sure you'll go into it a little bit more in depth. But moving those goods to Ukraine was at the point when we identified just how many challenges there are to get items across the border, to get passed through the red tape imposed by certain transit countries and governments. Of course, a lot of work has been done since then to ensure that they were removed, both by your organization as well. The US Business Council has been helping a lot tremendously through their relations, and we very much appreciate that support. So the pain points were mostly discovered at border control checkpoints, lack of storage facilities or the destruction of storage facilities, the inability to source assets within Ukraine itself. So whether it's railroad, grain hoppers, trucks, because many of the trucks that are usually used to transport grain to major ports, such as Odessa, are actually either being used for the war effort in Ukraine to support the logistics internally to help the military fight off the invasion, or they're being used to collect the current harvest. So where the harvesting is seasonal, it uses a lot of the internal resources for those particular purposes, like the agricultural operational purposes. So as a logistics and transportation company, for us, we've been applying a lot of the lessons that we've learned across in the US, which has a very good network of infrastructure, but still suffered during the months of September, October, November last year when we had a major backlog in our ports in the West Coast. Our company was fortunate enough to consult to the United States National Guard of California and help them create policies and put them into practices of how to move cargo that was getting backlogged, how it was getting stuck at certain pain points within the port and within the infrastructure system internally. And then we've tried to apply those same principles to move in agricultural products out of Ukraine to the border and then onwards to other destinations. Of course, with the major ports of Odessa, Ilyichovsk, and Mykolaiv being currently inaccessible and unable to shift these vast quantities of agricultural products, you have to get creative. You have to use roadside transits. There are complications and difficulties with that. You have to use the railroad as much as possible. And while there are rail car availabilities, as I'm sure my colleague knows, it's difficult moving it across to Poland because you have to switch over to a different wheelbase because Europe uses a completely different rail network system. And there is a shortage of those wheelbases. And there is the utilization of the river network. This is the river Gennadiy, ports of Reni and Izmail, which are very, very heavily congested right now, trying to move those supplies that are currently accumulating there onwards out to Turkey, which has been tremendously helpful in providing storage facilities and onward shipping opportunities to the rest of the world. But it's a very, very small trickle. We have to open the floodgates more, and there are a number of different solutions and practices where the collaboration and cooperation of maritime, trucking, and railroad companies will be very beneficial to getting the food supplies moving to the rest of the world out of Ukraine.
Thank you. And with the help of Trimble and Voptic, I'm sure it will be accelerated, if I may say so. Okay, Vlad. Question to you. You are one of the cohort of people that moved from Ukraine to USA in 2002? 2001. So you established your own business. Through all this 21 years, at 22 almost, you have developed, you made a great company, if I may say so, yeah? So what drives you still doing business with Ukraine? What kind of opportunities you see as Ukraine American entrepreneur?
Sure. Hello, everybody. It's my great honor to be here today. Thank you very much, everybody who attend. Thank you, Dennis, for moderating this panel. And I want to say that business Ukraine American community very much support this type of events. We had, by the way, coffee with chairman of the U.S. Ukraine Business Council, Morgan William. He say big hello to everybody. I live in Sacramento, California for the last 21 years. I say a few words about Ukraine American House. Ukraine American House, that's a non-profit organization, main purpose to promote business relationship between United States and Ukraine in education, business, and political sectors. One of our successful partners, that's the American University in Kyiv, which started right before war. We also in Sacramento, we have the largest Ukrainian diaspora. Over there, we provide different kind of events. We invite Ukrainian politicians there. We bring American politicians to Ukraine because we believe when we connect United States, California business, politicians with the Ukrainians, they have a great relationship. They have a big experience to exchange, to help each other. Also, American investors, they are always interested in Ukraine sectors. So also they need more transparent business structure to be more comfortable and motivated to invest in Ukraine. And we have to admit, if you're talking about investments, this war in Ukraine still going. And unfortunately, many professional investors, they're not comfortable start on the investment. And on the other side, we see less help going to Ukraine. And I would encourage private sectors, businesses to unite more to provide help to Ukraine. Thanks to our great partnership with the California National Guard, we were able to send multiple thousands body vest helmets to Ukraine. So I would like to encourage everybody to continue support Ukraine because war still going there. Back to your question, what is make us motivated to work with the Ukraine? Well, my personal opinion, Ukrainians, they are different people, different even from Russians. We have our Ukrainian identity. when 20 years ago in the United States, somebody asked me, where are you from? I said, Ukrainian. Oh, Russian. Yeah, Russian. So people kind of unite us. But when war started in Ukraine, Ukrainian people were able to approve own identity. Their dedication to their country, their honesty, their resistance, how they can work hard to protect their country. We like Ukrainian people. I believe the biggest value to any business, any country, is the people. And we just love Ukrainian people, and we see a very great and perspective partnership with the Ukrainian people.
Well said. Well said. Thank you. Thank you. Tom, the part of what Vlad mentioned about the commercial projects and non-commercial projects, I know very well that Trimble is very much in social corporate responsibility. And as you mentioned, 50% is commercial and 50% is not commercial. What kind of opportunities do you see right now in Ukraine in commercial and non-commercial part?
So the first couple very quick projects that we're doing, we're working with a demining nonprofit called Halo Trust. So we've given them GPS equipment to mark mines, to map out mines. We've got an opportunity to work with several city governments to provide 3D scanners to model culturally important buildings. So all of that's going to be delivered in the next couple of weeks. We've got a larger project going right now together with the US government, working with the Ukrainian Space Agency on some signal correction sources. We've got a project for supplying road building technology because without roads, right, you can't transport fuel, you can't transport grain.
And railroads.
And railroads. So we've got those types of projects for on the humanitarian side, and we've got our eyes open for the longer term commercial side, because when our company looks at Ukraine and looks at the Ukrainian people and how you have acted during the war, how the bravery, the resilience, the creativity, the energy, and then we look at the statements that have been made about becoming a modern European country, about rebuilding using the most modern technology, then that's the kind of project that we want to spend our time on over the next 10 years or so.
Okay, Tom, question to you in regards to what President Biden signed, I suppose, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, a huge investments in agricultural. Yeah. And additionally, it was announced recently by the USAID, a new program on agricultural development in Ukraine. What kind of opportunities is here?
Yeah,
for Trimble, of course.
Yeah, so the USAID, I think there are 7 different pillars that they're working on in Ukraine, everything from internally displaced persons to helping small business and helping agriculture. Then separately, they announced $100 million agriculture support package over the past couple of days. So it's all tied together with first food security. Because of we've talked about it quite a bit today, that the long-term effect and the very distant effect of Ukraine not being able to export food is going to be felt in a lot of Middle Eastern and African countries, which is very concerning to the U.S. So when you combine that with our desire for a very strong, independent, capable Ukraine, I think those are the investments that are being made right now.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Lars, question to you as already, the guys right from you mentioned already about that a lot, and Tom as well. So the infrastructure in Ukraine, especially the railroad infrastructure, damaged a lot, and a lot of investment will be needed to restore, to improve, to develop, and etc. What kind of, may I say, opportunities, role of WAPTEC, can you tell us about that?
Well, I wouldn't say it's necessarily only opportunities for WAPTEC, but I think Ukrzaliznytsia, again, has an opportunity to rebuild their rail and rebuild it in a way that it's more efficient, using some more American and European standards to really make that network more efficient and possibly start over again. Because before they inherited a Soviet network that probably wasn't the most efficient, but now you have the opportunity to add more digital products, digitalize it, and get the network to move faster and more efficiently.
Lars, when we are talking about the railroad, we all know that the European railroad system is a bit wider than the Ukrainian. Is it a problem to transport grains and all other goods
Yeah, so
elsewhere?
the former Soviet network is Russian gauge, was actually larger than standard gauge, which is Europe. So there's, the challenge as we talk about logistics, moving across the border, you have a changing station where you're moving rail cars from Russian gauge to standard gauge. So that area there, again, on the Polish border, Romania, Hungary, all those borders have changing ports, which need to be revamped, made more efficient, so we can keep the throughput of the grain and material moving faster.
All right. So in regards to moving faster, Lars, what kind of, may I say, lessons have been learned from all this situation? Maybe what kind of lessons have you learned for yourself and as a managing director of Optic?
Well, I look at all of Eastern Europe, and like I mentioned before, it's really now a concern to have autonomous locomotives. And the European standard of electrifying everything doesn't work so well when someone interrupts your power grid. So we're seeing a lot of countries now look at their rail network as more of a sovereign security type of initiative versus just, it's nice to have a railroad, which also will benefit the grain companies and the mining companies in the country if there's more of a focus on revamping it, modernizing it, and considering it a key asset within the country.
Thank you. Thank you. Vasily, question to you. So we already discussed a lot about the agricultural, about the railroad. What else can be done, may I say so, by European states, neighboring European states, Poland, Czechia, probably Bulgaria, as well as my fellow co-panelists mentioned on the previous panel, in order to help Ukraine and expand the volumes that Ukraine can export?
Yeah, absolutely. What we are finding right now is a lot of the countries that you mentioned are themselves inherently agriculturally focused countries. So they have their own produce and their own product that they have to harvest, transport, and ship out of the country to end buyers and end users. A lot of their facilities are not capable of handling more volume, so they haven't really future-proofed themselves. They cannot take additional capacity on top of the agricultural products that they have in order to service it and to get it out efficiently and quickly, or to receive more vessels, for example, or trains. So working with other partners, there are a number of directions where they can be absolutely more helpful. And some of those very much relate to what previous panelists and previous discussions were about. For example, Poland, Bulgaria, some of the other further countries away from the border of Ukraine have large trucking networks, a lot of transportation and trucking companies, which are right now very much afraid to send their assets to Ukraine because of the military situation, the war risk. Insurance doesn't cover their assets in case something goes wrong. Insurance doesn't necessarily cover the freight that they're carrying as well, which could lead to multi-million-dollar losses. So it would be beneficial for the banking sector and the insurance sector to unite and provide further support, possibly with governmental oversight, whereby transits into Ukraine and coming back out of Ukraine with freight would be protected, would be insured, would be underwritten by major players in the field, so that the transportation companies have that sort of security and sense that, hey, we're risking going there to help the country, but it's not going to put us at a standstill in case our assets become somehow immobilized, damaged, destroyed, and so on and so forth. And of course, it goes from trucks to trains that potentially could be sent across from other neighboring countries and bring back goods, but not even necessarily bringing goods out of Ukraine. Ukraine needs a lot of supplies going in as well. We're talking about humanitarian aids, we're talking about fertilizer, which there is a huge shortage of. So the country needs to prepare for farming and harvesting for the next year and the next season. Well, there's going to be a huge shortfall. And of course, vessels, maritime, the shipping lanes, the ports. most of the river ports in the Danube can receive some sort of barging equipment or sea river type vessels. We would very much like to see, as a logistics transportation company, more maritime players becoming involved in this particular geographical region and providing access to their vessels, to their barges, to ship Ukrainian goods out of the country and to ship other much needed supplies into Ukraine as well.
Thank you, thank you. Well, Vlad, question to you. You know, I remember the words that were said by Winston Churchill: "Never let the good crisis go to waste." So, what kind of opportunities do you see right now in Ukraine? Any new opportunities of doing business with Ukraine? Because the different situation, if I may say so, requires different approach and different businesses as well.
Absolutely, I see there is new opportunity in any sectors because we understand that a big portion of Ukraine business was connected to Russia, Belarus, in terms of oil purchase, oil transportation, and with the history how businesses was built, that was more towards like to Soviet Union countries. But now when this invasion happened, Ukraine changing everything. Ukraine purchasing oil from the Europe. Ukraine changing everything. There's more and more sanctions imposed into Russia. So I would say there is any sectors in transportation, in IT, in finances. Right now, Ukraine rebuilding. That's completely in every sectors, and that's great opportunity to prove to the world that Ukrainians, that's new country can protect themselves and can build business without corruption, because still many professional investors, they're a little bit hesitant, but now they see how Ukrainians protecting their country. There is hope and belief that Ukraine open and will rebuild this new economic without corruption.
Thank you very much. Tom, question to you, as you mentioned already about the high-end technology and so on. You mentioned about the Ukrainian Space Agency. As we all know, that a lot of American companies, especially like Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, Honeywell, Radiant Technologies, they are all looking into the space. And you mentioned about the space. I suppose 20, 25 years ago, Ukraine was a state with some space passion, if I may say so. What kind of opportunities do you see right now in this area?
In space?
Yes.
We haven't looked very closely. Ukraine's always been very famous for aviation products, for airplanes, some in machine building. Space, I think there's a great opportunity. The one thing that I'd like to bring up, you know, if I have the chance, is we're looking more and more at training. So not so much space, but IT, for instance. So the Ministry of Digital Transformation just announced a new project to increase the amount of GDP through IT, to kind of bring it to the level of agriculture. So I think they announced they want to train 40,000 new IT specialists, which I think is a fantastic thing for the future of Ukraine. But also, when we think about rebuilding, we need to think about training. So Trimble, we supply what we call technology labs to universities around the world. So we're in discussions with a couple different institutions in Ukraine about providing Trimble hardware and software for students to train on. And that's mapping, surveying, and construction technology, agriculture technology. But also, when we think about rebuilding, you know, one of our main partners around the world is Caterpillar. And I was on a call with them, and I said, look, you know, that given the supply chain shortages and the availability of construction machines right now, it's very hard to get any extra machines. I said, what are your plans? You know, you need to send like 5,000 machines to Ukraine in the next 18 to 24 months or so.
You mean the heavy machines from
Heavy
Caterpillar?
construction machines, yeah. And so they're looking at their strategic plan on how to make sure those are ready. But we also agreed on the phone call that the worst thing that could happen is to send 5,000 heavy construction machines to Ukraine right now, because just like every other high-tech piece of equipment, it needs to be maintained, right? So you need a network of thousands of trained technicians and trained operators. You need parts logistics, all of those things. And that all needs to be set up now, well before the machine actually arrives. So part of the plan for reconstruction, it needs to be training, like vocational training of technicians and operators and surveyors and mappers and architects.
And I suppose the invaluable part of every reconstruction is financing, of course.
Absolutely, but personally, that's lower down on my list because, between the U.S. and European Union has the Solidarity Fund, World Bank, IMF, those are all sources of funds. Plus that, we hear a lot from the legal teams that are working on all of the Russian government and oligarch assets that have been frozen. It's very difficult to use them, to confiscate them and just give them to Ukraine. There's no precedent for that. But there are teams of very smart people that are working on ways to maybe keep those assets as a guarantee while Russia pays Ukraine reparations, or taxes on oil and gas exports, something like that. So between world governments and international institutions and Russian assets, I think there's going to be money.
Thank you, thank you. Lars, question to you, as Tom already mentioned about the financing. I know you guys helped to UZ at the beginning after the invasion with some spare parts in order to maintain Ukrzaliznytsia to operate efficiently and so on. How do you see right now the role of UZ and probably the Minister of Infrastructure in rebuilding all those that was damaged?
No, we see it as a critical component, as you talked about earlier. Moving aggregate in and out is going to be critical. Moving heavy machinery in and out is going to be critical. And you're going to have to do that over rail. You're going to have to move it from the seaport. So we see UZ as being one of the core components of rebuilding Ukraine. So, I mean, every aspect of it needs to be kind of revamped and looked at again and prioritized within the government.
Okay, so I may assume that you're providing them with some key advices in order to make the Ukrainian railroad system like 21st century railroad system, if I may say.
Yeah, so again, like the assets that we're providing are state-of-the-art assets. They require less maintenance. They're 50% more fuel efficient, so on and so forth. So again, that was critical for Ukraine during the last 6 months, is to have assets that don't break down. We were able to supply them with about $4 million of spare parts, just to keep those units running to the border as fast as they could.
Thank you, thank you. Vlad, what do you see right now as the biggest challenge of doing business in Ukraine? Because usually, a lot of investors are saying that Ukraine never loses an opportunity to lose an opportunity. But thanks to entrepreneurs like you that are looking forward and just going forward, you are reaching your skies, if I may say so.
There's too many challenges, as I mentioned before, because war in Ukraine, it's not finished yet. So it's very hard to bring any outside professional businesses. For example, all finances, they block all programs for other Ukrainian businesses. In logistics standpoint, there's impossible to send to Ukraine any equipment what you list in the European Union, because they're on the strict, I know many European partners that are not able to operate in Ukraine. There's no flight, no connections, and during the war, I believe Ukraine doing amazing. Ukraine surviving, protecting people of Ukraine, protecting country, and still sort of support. So there is because of war, we have issue in any sector.
Thank you a lot. So, Vasily, I suppose maybe the last question. What are the, if I may say so, the key challenge for you right now to handle all your orders transporting to and from Ukraine?
If I were to pinpoint one, it's definitely border crossings. A lot of border crossings, yes. A lot of material supplies are being held up in very large queues crossing borders into Poland, Moldova, and further on. A huge assistance, and again, we have seen this work very effectively when we were decongesting ports on the west coast of the United States, was to create special customs bonded zones outside of the territory of the port. So essentially huge, large, flat areas of space where cargo could be taken across to, and additional personnel could clear it into the country, because the port itself only had limited amount of capacity. Same way with the border crossing, in order to avoid these long lines and incredible waiting times to move critical supplies, it could be a very beneficial factor to create landing or staging areas which are customs bonded. So when the trucks are rerouted to fields, essentially with personnel, gated around them, to clear those trucks. That way, it creates easier pathways through the road network. It provides a staging area where the trucks can be pre-cleared before they go through the border. It's still a customs bound zone, so any documentational errors or procedures can be resolved in that particular geolocation, which doesn't affect the rest of the infrastructure of the freight movement. So if we could have better and clearer efficiency on borders, and that would require the involvement of obviously governmental entities, ministries of customs and trade, and so on and so forth, that could be a very, very major factor in clearing up and improving the efficiency of the supply chains.
Thank you, thank you. You know, I'm just admire all these guys that are sitting right now on the panel, because I'm admire their readiness, their willingness, and their energy to do business in Ukraine, to bring high-end and cutting-edge technologies, to develop railroad system, to make it the system of the 21st century, and of course to find ways how to feed the world with food and deliver all the necessary goods. So, and now I suppose we came to the most interesting part, gentlemen. So our time is almost over. So 3 words that you associate Ukraine with. Vlad.
Before 3 words, I'm very well connected with the Ukraine. My parents in Ukraine, my 5 brothers in Ukraine, they refused to relocate, even one of them citizen of United States. We have office in Kyiv, in Odessa. So I believe in 3 words I can express what is the most important for them. So it's victory, victory, and victory. Everything else Ukraine will rebuild and he will handle. Number 1, number 2, number 3, victory.
Very well said. I will note it. Thank you. Thank you. Vasily.
For me, the 3 words would probably be compatibility, and that means that Ukraine really needs to start thinking about how its infrastructure and networking and internally infrastructural networks can be compatible with Europe. That's both in the railroad sector, in the... Oh, I can't explain? All right. Sorry. Compatibility.
Paragraphs.
Compatibility. Projectization. Rebuilding of Ukraine definitely needs to be run as a project, because it's such a complicated process. An entity needs to be in charge of it, and all the stakeholders, everybody who's present here, needs to be aware of what's going on and how they can plug in to assist further improvement. And the third one is future. You know, this is the part where Ukraine is actively looking forward to a better future, and I hope that everybody who is here will help in creating that a realistic possibility.
Thank you. Lars?
So I guess my experience there and former G Transportation and WabTech's experience would be resilience, opportunistic, and welcoming.
Very well said. Thank you. Sounds like Pennsylvania motto. Tom.
So I've been studying Ukrainian language.
Wow.
So my 3 words are nabližajemo, pridemo razum.
Whoa, this is very well said. Thank you. So, gentlemen, thank you very much for taking the time to be on the panel. Thank you very much for your notes, for your looking forward plans, and let's hope for the best. Let's hope for the upcoming victory. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much for our moderator and for our speakers. So we have a 10-minute break, and at 5 p.m. we'll be here for a business leaders roundtable, and we will be having real world views from business leaders who have actually invested in Ukraine. At 5 p.m. See you.